In the heartland of America lies the small town of Wayfield, a place normally at peace with nature. However, on this fateful summer afternoon, ominous air fills the town and dark clouds loom ominously overhead, heralding a storm of unprecedented ferocity. Emily Jacobs, a high school senior, watched the horizon with a sense of dread. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, a precursor to the violence nature could unleash. Her father, a veteran storm chaser, had taught her to respect the sky's warnings. Now, as the clouds began to swirl into a sinister dance, her instinct screamed for safety. Emily's phone buzzed with an urgent notification, a tornado warning. A few minutes later her phone received another notification. When her phone confirmed an EF5 tornado warning, her heart sank. These were the giants, the destroyers, rarely witnessed and never conquered. An EF5, the most devastating kind, was predicted to strike Wayfield within the hour. As the siren wailed its foreboding cry through Wayfield, Emily hurriedly prepared the storm cellar, gathering essentials with shaking hands. Emily heard the first warning siren wail through the town. The wind picked up, carrying with it a haunting howl. She glanced out the window and saw the sky twisted into a sickening green-black vortex, swallowing the light as the tornado approached with a deafening roar. It was a monstrous thing, vast and violent, churning with a life of its own. With her dog Max, Emily dashed to the cellar, throwing open the heavy door and descending just as debris began to pelt her home, moments before the tornado struck. From below, the sounds were a relentless, howling scream mixed with the shattering of her world above. The house creaked and groaned under the strain, and then, disturbingly, the noises grew sharper, the unmistakable sound of destruction, of life being torn apart. The ground trembled under the sheer force of the wind. Inside the cellar, Emily listened as the world above seemed to shatter. The roar was deafening, punctuated by the sounds of her house tearing apart. Max whimpered beside her, and she held him close, whispering words of comfort over the din. Suddenly, silence enveloped them. The eye of the tornado was directly overhead. The false calm was eerie. Emily knew it was a brief respite. The back half of the storm would soon follow, possibly more ferocious than the first. The storm's ferocious heart passed over, plunging the cellar into an eerie silence. This was the eye, a momentary pause surrounded by devastation. Driven by a terrifying curiosity, Emily opened the cellar door to peer out. As Emily cracked open the cellar door to glimpse the eye of the storm, she saw that the sky had opened into a clear, calm void surrounded by the violent rotation of the tornado. It was mesmerizing yet monstrous, a colossal pillar of destruction. She was met with a hellish scene. The sky above was deceptively calm, encircled by the violent storm. But it wasn't just debris circling in the tempest. Dark, twisted figures moved within the storm's walls. They were like wraiths, made of wind and shadow, their forms flickering between solidity and mist. Then, as if alerted to her presence, the storm resumed. Emily slammed the door shut, but not before seeing the outline of a figure in the swirling debris. She blinked, unsure if her eyes were betraying her. A human form carried helplessly in the tornado's wrath vanished into the chaos. As the eye moved on, the storm resumed with even greater fury. The figures seemed agitated, their movements more frantic as the winds picked up. Emily slammed the cellar door shut, heart pounding. The figures had seen her, she was sure of it. The second half of the tornado was even more terrifying. The figures she had seen were now visible in brief flashes as the house above was ripped away piece by piece. Their screams, a horrifying mix of human agony and the howling wind, filtered down to her, sending chills through her body. When silence finally descended, it was heavy and oppressive. Emily emerged from the cellar to find Wayfield obliterated, a landscape of flattened houses, uprooted trees, and cars tossed about like toys. In the ruins, she found her father's storm-chasing journal. Reading it by the light of day, she learned of the unclaimed, spirits of those taken by past storms, now part of the tornado itself. A chill ran through her as she realized the storm had not just destroyed her town, it had haunted it. As Emily stepped over the debris, a chilling gust of wind brought a whisper to her ears, not just the wind but words, We are the unclaimed, taken by the storm, hungry for the living. Amid the wreckage, Emily heard faint cries for help. She moved towards the sounds, finding neighbors trapped under debris. The town's devastation was complete, with emergency services nowhere in sight. Night fell, and with it, temperatures dropped. Wayfield was dark because the power grid was destroyed. Emily kept her group close, starting a small fire from broken furniture for warmth. In the firelight, the reality of their situation settled in. They were alone, isolated from the outside world. With nowhere to go, Emily spent the night in the remnants of her home. As darkness settled, so did a deep cold. Overnight, another warning siren howled. This time, it was for aftershocks, powerful thunderstorms following the tornado's path. The group huddled together, facing this new threat with grim determination. Rain lashed at them, driven by fierce winds, but the shelter of the collapsed basement walls held. In the chaos of the storm, Emily thought she saw figures moving through the rain, shadowy, indistinct shapes that vanished when she tried to focus. The trauma of the day made her doubt her senses, but she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. However, she could feel the presence of the unclaimed, their malevolence a tangible thing. They were closer now, emboldened by night. The night was long and full of terrors, but dawn did eventually break. Daylight seemed to banish the figures, and Emily felt a surge of relief. The second wave had passed, leaving fresh scars on the land. Emily and her neighbors ventured out to assess the damage and search for more survivors. As they navigated the debris, Emily spotted something in the mud, a battered, ancient-looking book. She picked it up, puzzled by its presence. Opening it, she found it was her father's journal, filled with notes on tornadoes. A bookmarked page on EF5 tornadoes caught her eye. It mentioned legends of spirits seen in the storms and old tales of the winds carrying souls. Shaken, Emily looked around at the ravaged town. The idea of spectral figures in the storm haunted her. Were they just legends, or had she witnessed something otherworldly last night? She decided to leave Wayfield at first light, seeking safety and hoping to find help. As she left, she looked back at the ruins of her town, and she could still see the faint outlines of the unclaimed, watching her depart. Emily's escape was not an end, but the beginning of a new chapter. Haunted by her experiences with the unclaimed, she delved deep into research to unravel the events that had transpired. As Wayfield slowly rebuilt, tales of Emily's storm encounters wove into the fabric of local lore, enriching the mystique surrounding EF5 tornadoes.